there are a few things you need to do behind the scene, which you cannot make public. But what I can assure is that the government is committed to doing everything to rescue these girls.
The plight of the missing Chibok girls is back in the news as top security chiefs hold national emergency meeting over a new video released by Boko Haram. So we ask, are there hopes that these girls will return home? That's our first big story on TVC Breakfast. Thanks for joining us this morning for TVC Breakfast. I am Mike Okwache.
And we're so glad to have you join us this morning. I am Ngozi Alebu. Also coming up for discussion.
There should be no negotiation with the Avengers. If not, you create more Avengers.
Well, dialogue with Niger Delta militants and restiveness in the region. Some are even asking if the dialogue is inclusive of all.
Suddenly found ourselves that the parallel market was really doing better in terms of, if you look at, last week Friday, to my mind, euro was 400 and something, dollar was about 395. So it's affecting the country, no doubt about that, and we don't have enough reserves.
So, what makes South Africa's economy the biggest in Africa? Why is Nigeria fast losing its big brother role? Or is the country no longer the giant of Africa? That's Talk Time on TVC Breakfast.
And TVC Breakfast discussions begin in a moment. Well, Chibok girls is back again. The topic,
yes,
certainly, it was awash on the news those times when it was, and then it died down after a little while, and here we are again.
Yes, 850-something days after, there seems to be some kind of glimmer of hope with this latest, video. Parents have been identifying some of their kids and other people's children in the same video. But this time around, it looks like the Boko Haram terrorists are using some form of blackmail on government. How does government,
we'll get to see all those
this?
Because on the other hand, it tends to look as if when everyone is the news and stories about Chibok girls and Boko Haram is dying down, they come up with something so it can revive that buzz again and so on. But we'll talk about this as we get along. Now let's turn our attention to, the first big story. Now the federal government says it is in touch with the leadership of Boko Haram and will soon effect the release of the abducted Chibok girls. Information Minister Lai Mohammed disclosed this after a national security meeting that took place at the presidential villa in Abuja. The meeting is coming a day after Boko Haram released a third video showing some of the kidnapped girls. A State House correspondent Tai Amodu reports.
It is an unusual national security meeting taking place on the first day of the week, obviously prompted by the recent release of a video by Boko Haram showing about 50 of the Chibok girls still in captivity. Grave accusations are made in the video about how some of the girls had been killed in recent aerial bombardments of the insurgents' positions and how some others had been married off. But when the security chiefs and other participants come out of the meeting, they are reluctant to disclose what happened, instead insisting that it is a meeting to deliberate on how to respond to emergencies.
The meeting is about how we'll handle crisis. The issue of crisis, all sorts of crises, be it flood, be it terrorism, and that's what we have just done.
It's a little workshop that was arranged for us to be able to understand how to respond to an emergency issues, how to be able to be in a position to advise Mr. President to take the right decision when we have an emergency case in this country, either be it terrorism, flood, or any other thing. So this is a put together component for the entire chief executive to sit down and understand the processes of thinking when there's disaster.
And yet questions must be answered on issues thrown up by the video and subsequent reactions by the military to it, like what happened to one of the persons declared wanted, who has turned himself in.
The video, we are analyzing it, and we're ensuring that we'll make appropriate comment when we get it. He's reported to the men and he's with them. I don't think he was turned back.
The information minister is quick to assure the nation that everything is under control and government is responding to all issues thrown up, even beyond the video released, because it is in touch with the insurgents. Mohammed wants the Bring Back Our Girls campaigners who have threatened to march on the presidential villa to exercise some restraint as government works out a way to effect the rescue of the girls and bring this saga to an end.
We appreciate their commitment to the return of these girls, but there are a few things you need to do behind the scene which you cannot make public. But what I can assure is that the government is committed to doing everything to rescue these girls.
The military on its part pledges to go ahead with its sweep of Boko Haram strongholds, describing the demand by the insurgents for a swap between the Chibok girls and some of its captured fighters as a political decision which will not deter its own operations. Tai Amodu, TVC News, Abuja.
All right, we're joined now by Tanwa Ashiru, a U.S. Air Force veteran and security analyst. It's good to have you in the studio right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. And we'll be having from our Abuja studio, Dr. Alan Manasseh, and he is the Director of Media and Publicity of the Chibok community. We have him as we get along on the program.
Of course, and we'll also be joined on Skype by Yemi Adamolekun. Good morning to you and thanks for joining us.
Yes.
All right, Yemi is part of the Bring Back Our Girls movement and the campaign. All right, let's start with you, Tanwa. Since the past few years, when Boko Haram has been unleashing its terror on the people, government has always shown and said we are committed to stamping out Boko Haram one way or the other. Then the issue of Chibok girls became the negative icing on the cake that gave it another dimension. Talking about girls, talking about the rights of girls and the buzz around the world as the case may be. Right now, what do you think the Nigerian security agencies are not doing right to get these things over with?
Okay. So really, it's a matter of intelligence. It's very important. Everything that's going on with the Chibok girls being somewhere in Sambisa Forest and us not having eyes on them, not even having ears on them, so to speak, is primarily an intelligence factor. Now, I worked as an intelligence analyst in the U.S. Air Force, and I worked in, I was even in Afghanistan as well. So I know the sort of resources that are available to be able to try to find, people in very remote places and so on and so forth. And really, to be honest, we think about things like the U.S. Air Force establishing a base in the middle of the desert and making things work. So it is possible. Now, in the news, I read that the Chief of Army Staff had said, part of the reason why it's hard for them to, go into Sambisa has to do with the terrain. Right now it's rainy season, so there's a lot of trees and shrubs, so they can't really use aerial surveillance because they can't see much down there. And he was like, oh, it's too vast, have you been there? It's such a big place. But really, if you think about it, the desert, the mountains, anywhere really is vast. What you do is a grid system. Really, if you think about it, if the Nigerian military had to go to another country to secure another country, would they say the country is too vast and therefore they can't do it? So really it boils down to, is it that they don't have resources? And that's a major possibility. It may be lack of resources and they're not being very honest with us.
All right, Yemi Adamolekun is reaching us via Skype. I don't know if you heard what Ms. Tanwa Ashiru just said here, that the reasons that the Nigerian security forces are putting out there, that the terrain of Sambisa Forest is very treacherous and so they're not able to the job of rescuing these girls. Does it hold water with you? And, with this latest video now, which is actually the third video, the Bring Back Our Girls campaigners have actually been saying that government really is not doing enough. What's your take on this?
I think I agree partially. And I think, one of the things we've come to realize is that the resources and the capacity of the army was significantly just depleted under the last administration. in terms of resources that were made available to them that didn't actually get to the army. So in terms of that, I would have to agree that they probably don't have enough of the resources that they need. But the counter to that is that we have several governments, the US government, French government, the British government, Israeli government, who have offered to help. So to the degree that they're making use of the resources that have been made available to them, I wouldn't know. They will be in the best position to do that. But I think more fundamentally, because I mean, it is a military operation and there's a limit to what you expect to be shared publicly or disclosed to the public. So that's where the Bring Back Our Girls family then has a big problem. It's the lack of communication. One of the things we requested for last year when we met with Mr. President was to put together sort of a central hub that has people from the Army, the National Security Advisor, the Ministry of Women Affairs, maybe the Office of the Vice President, since he is the person supervising NEMA, which is in charge of IDPs, but basically have a hub of information so that when things happen, we know where to go for information. There's direct access for information. I mean, from the last video and this video, we see the Minister of Information and the people in the Army contradicting themselves. For this video as well, the same thing is happening. But if you have one central location where information is coming out, then it makes it easier for people to reach out to understand what's happening. Over the past 2 years, the Chibok community has complained repeatedly of lack of resources, lack of information that they are getting from the Nigerian government. So it seems that it's every time either a video is released or something happens, that's when there's a flurry of activity and a flurry of communication, which is really not enough.
All right, now give us a picture, because the BBOG campaign group is a unifying body that is keeping alive that buzz and that remembrance of the fact that government has to do something, and for Nigerians not to forget the Chibok girls, as the case may be. Now, when this video came out, give us a picture of how the feeling or the hope or the whatever it is that went on after the video was released within the camp of the BBOG campaign. Can you give us a picture?
Sure. The theme for this year, so last year when we marked the 1 year commemoration of when the girls were abducted, the theme we chose was never to be forgotten. This year, April 14, when it was 2 years, the theme we chose was hope endures. And I think in that sense, the video has continued to give hope that the girls are alive. When Amina Ali was rescued or was found, let me not say rescued. When Amina was found, it's one of her own bringing her back also sort of rekindled hope. She made mention that her colleagues were still alive. They did also mention that some of them were already dead. So that gave a bit of hope. But then seeing a video where you have quite a number of them in one location, they're still reviewing the stills to see if all of them are actually Chibok girls. But we do know for a fact that the Makida who spoke is definitely a Chibok girl. So that does give hope, because for the parents to know that their children are alive. And it also sort of counters any, for people, I was at a meeting on Sunday, and there were still people there who didn't believe that the Chibok girls were abducted. So maybe this would help some of them. But definitely it gives hope that the girls are alive. But it's also very disheartening, because the video came two years and 4 months after they were abducted. And we're asking really what is the Nigerian government saying that they're doing? And obviously they can't say that they've looked at Nigeria's territorial borders and say that, okay, we've searched everywhere and we can say we haven't found those girls. So,
all right, let me bring in Dr. Alan Manasseh. He's the Director, Media and Publicity of Chibok Community. Thanks for joining us again. Now, the parents of the abducted girls are saying government should go ahead and do a swap deal with the Boko Haram terrorists, which is what they're asking for. And they're actually using one of the girls to actually speak directly to government to, do just this. Now, what do you make of this, and what's the thinking generally about, the Chibok parents, as it were? And is this really what you think government should be doing at this time? How should government really go about this?
Government should do everything possible, whether it is the use of full military strength, or the use of negotiation, or the combination of these two to get these girls back. Because we cannot sacrifice innocent girls that went to school in search of education in place of anticipated attacks by insurgents that might be released via the swap deal. That is not reasonable to me, and it is not reasonable to all of us in the community, including the parents. So our demand has been one: government should do everything within their own capacity, deploying all their arsenal in whichever way, and get these girls back. Because this is the third video, and we are not ready to see and to sit and watch the fourth video of these girls again. What we want is the rescue of these girls now, because lots of developed partners, developed countries have indicated interest in helping Nigeria with the intelligence that they desire to get these girls back. Initially, the talk was no credible intelligence. Now there has been credible intelligence right from the proof of life video, and few days after that, Amina Ali escaped and came out with raw intelligence they need to process. Now the third video came out. We don't care whether they have credible people to negotiate with or not. There has been windows, and there has been windows of negotiation. So what we are saying is negotiate and get this girl back. Release whoever the Boko Haram is in need of, and then go after them thereafter. Because the excuses has been that these girls are sitting on mines, and any use of force will endanger their lives. So if there are windows to get these girls out, get them out and let the military get to them. Because I could vividly remember when the chief of air staff came out and said this same military under this same government dropped over 600 bombs, over a particular period of time on that particular axis. And yesterday, surprisingly, somebody is coming out to say again that they cannot verify if at all the injured girls lying down on that video are as a result of bomb blasts from the Air Force jets. Okay. I cannot understand some of these things that are happening in this country, and we must ask critical questions as it is now.
Okay, let's bring in Tangwa in here. He said something, whatever government has to do, if it means releasing the girls, releasing the prisoners and getting back these girls. Now, in terms of security, is that the best strategy to go?
To be honest, using negotiation to get the girls is very tricky. Why? Shekau, Boko Haram, are they people we can trust? Are they people of their word? It's not even necessarily exchanging the prisoners, because eventually the lives of the girls really is a lot more valuable than the lives of these of the Boko Haram members. But, can they trust them? And then if you're looking at rescue operations, really, to be honest, 2 years is more than enough time for the Nigerian government to have figured out a sort of rescue operation. And I always give this example. Remember when the U.S. had to go get Osama bin Laden in Pakistan? Okay, the Navy SEALs had been training and training. They literally built a replica building of the building that he lived in, and they were practicing, doing practice runs on a rescue operations. You count
and
every
it was a totally covert operation.
Yes, completely. Nobody knew about it. Just those guys, and they just sat there and waited to get the go-ahead. So by now, it's been 2 years. Surely by now you should have the forest mapped out. You should have certain areas. Look, divided into a grid system. We've cleared this portion, we've cleared this portion. And by now, the military should have been able to at least narrow down, this is where they are. Yes, and then at some point, because they're not going to be able to go in with force, like he said, it will endanger the lives of these girls. But it's supposed to be a very stealthy, tactical operation, using special forces, or, special forces to go in there. These are guys that are trained in tactical operations and stealth operations, covert, and you go in there tactically at night, just determine at which point would be, the most beneficial, and then go in and get it. So I think that's the frustration. It's been 2 years. Surely by now you have a strategy.
And frustration really is the word. When you hear the terrorists say that military forces, the Air Force and the rest of them, have actually taken out some of the girls, unfortunately, that is a friendly fire. What would you call that now? Okay. What do you think is the psychology behind this, and the use of one of the girls, to actually talk to government, to plead with government to actually release their men, so that they can go free.
Okay. So I've long maintained that Shekau uses the girls as his ace card. You know, that's the one tool that he has in his arsenal because he knows that it's what the Nigerian government wants. So he's using them as his pawn. Okay, you know what? Give me this and I'll give you back the Chibok girls. Do this and I'll give you back the Chibok girls. So that's why really, to be honest, that's why he's really protected them. Now, because of that, you may want to think, is it possible that Shekau killed, you know, some girls and staged this whole thing to say it was an airstrike? I don't think he necessarily would do that to Chibok girls. Even if he had to stage it, he probably selected some other girls other than Chibok girls just because they're very valuable even to him. But then, you know, could it have been airstrikes? Really, if you look at the area, and you always do something called a post-blast assessment. If it was an airstrike, really that place would be like, it would be a mess. There'd be debris everywhere. You know, I'm sorry, and even the bodies may be just completely, you know, scattered all over the place. But then what you saw were like some kegs and kerosenes that were just, I mean, some kegs that were just turned over. So it makes you wonder, okay, was this really an airstrike? Surely, obviously, something happened. But then was it friendly fire? Now, the way we can verify is what the military has to do, which is to try to determine, you know, from the faces of the girls that were deceased and determine whether or not they truly were Chibok girls or not. So, you know, Shekau, he's capable of that.
Okay. Let me bring in Yemi here. Yemi, you have been following this issue over the years. I'd like to talk about the issue of information management, how the government is feeding the people with, this is how far we have come. Over the past 1 year, as the case may be, the military has come up to give release to the media how they have all the areas of success that they have achieved so far and all of that. Now, when it comes to information management, when issues like this come up, how satisfied is the BBOG group?
Management should be constant, and that's been a consistent complaint of ours. You don't, and unfortunately what it forces the military to be is forces them on the defensive, because they're forever having to explain themselves when a video comes out. Now, I mean, as the lady that you have in the studio was explaining, you can talk about, you can't talk about everything, which is fine, but you can engage the people who are involved so they know that you're working. And on that note, the military has scored extremely poorly. Because when you have a government that takes citizens who are advocating for an issue or demanding that the government does its constitutional responsibility, if you turn them into an enemy, then there is a problem. Now, Amina was brought back. Amina is being debriefed, holed up in a house and being talked to. Amina is one person. What if they bring back 200 people, 200 of the girls? Do we have a system to actually debrief prisoners of Boko Haram? Let information, I mean, as Mrs. Ezekweli said, she's walking intelligence. How has that been deployed? Now, part of what she said also is that Shekau and Boko Haram, the Chibok girls being the ace card, is also, I think, partially the fault of the government of Nigeria, because you've made everybody else you've brought back. We've rescued 100 today, we rescued 200 today, which is fantastic news for their families and people who had missing loved ones. But there's nothing that's been said about them. You have 100 people. Are there 6 women from Bama, 4 men from Biu, 2 children from Goza? Where are they from? Let's also celebrate the rescue of these Nigerian citizens in that way. That reiterates the value that every Nigerian life has value. But the Nigerian government has failed to do that, both in its communication and both in a process to actually reintegrate. I mean, the Bring Back a Girls family, one of the things we've also worked on, we've created a map of how you verify people, you bring them back, you reintegrate them into society. We don't think the Nigerian government has anything that they're doing. Luckily, and I will give them credit for this, the Bring Back a Girls family worked on a database, on a model for a database of missing persons. Nigeria does not have a register of missing people. So you're rescuing people you don't even know were missing in the first place. But the government has taken that on, and we're working with the National Human Rights Commission to actually create that model. So that's a good thing that has come out of this. But communication continues to be.
Let me stay with you, Yemi Adamolekun. You are a member of the BBOG, and you plan to march to the seat of power sometime this week. Don't you think this might even complicate matters, especially for government that really needs to be focused on how to clinically, go to this where these girls are? does government need this distraction? Is that not what it will amount to at the end of the day if the BBOG really do go to the seat of power? Because after all, some people would say that you have actually made your point clear to government.
How have we made it clear to government? We've been saying the same thing for 2 years and 4 months, and obviously they don't seem to be hearing. And government is a continuum. So it wasn't about Jonathan, neither is it about Buhari.
All right, Yemi. All right, Yemi.
Yes.
Let me just hold you a little bit. We'll come back to you to continue your point. Now, we are going out on TVC Entertainment. But viewers there can continue with the TVC Breakfast on TVC Nigeria, on Kasa Channel 190, DSTV Channel 418.
Of course, you can also catch up with us on GoTV 45 and ACTV 510. Stay with us. Okay, you're welcome back. We're talking about the Bring Back Girls. As a matter of fact, the latest video has brought again to the fore the national discourse as a matter international discourse, really, over the Chibok girls. And we have our guest in the studio, Tanwa Ashiru, a U.S. Air Force veteran and security analyst. We also have Alan Manasseh, Dr. Alan Manasseh, Director of Media and Publicity of the Chibok community, and Yemi Adamolekun, who's speaking with us via Skype. She's a member of the BBOG. And now, Yemi, you were trying to make a point concerning the question that I asked you about the march that you plan to do at the seat of power, whether that will be a distraction or not for the government. Is this a good time for that march?
It's always a good time. I mean, I think there's ideally it would not be necessary if government engaged, but it's a constant frustration with the government and the ability to communicate and engage. If at this point the government still doesn't think they should have a meeting and say, look, this is what is going on, have a meeting with the Chibok community. Amina was released, was found probably about 2 months or so ago. How has the information that they've gotten from Amina been translated or transferred to the community to let them know this is what we understand, this is what we're working on? It hasn't been done. Civilian JTF in the Chibok area have been complaining for months that they have information they've been trying to get across to the Nigerian government. Nobody's listening to them, nobody's asking them questions. Meanwhile, Amina, they found Amina and then reached out to the Nigerian military to come and get her. So, I mean, in whichever way that we can get the Nigerian government to listen and wake up. And it's not just about the Chibok girls. It seems as if this government is just has blinders on and they're not listening, not seeing what is going on in the country. We have beyond the Chibok girls and Boko Haram, there's insecurity all over the country. North Central herdsmen and Fulani in the south, southeast, and it's as if they just are not listening. And whatever it is that we have to do to ensure that the federal government of Nigeria listens to its citizens and pays attention to the people who have elected them to serve them, then we have to do that. It's inconvenient. I'm sure you know people who protest. It's not that they're jobless. They have jobs. People have businesses. People have work. So it's not that people are just like, oh, I have nothing to do today. Let me get on the road and march to Asoro. No. But it's a reality that, look, whatever it is that we need to do to get any government in power, federal, state, local, to wake up, then we need to do it.
Okay, let me bring in Dr. Alan Manasseh in here. Now, Dr. Manasseh, can you give us a picture of back in Chibok, over this period of time, especially now that this latest video is out, what has been the mood in Chibok generally? Is it the mood of being happy that, okay, there is proof that these girls are actually alive, or is it mixed? Really? Give us a picture of what goes on in Chibok this period of times.
The general feeling is that of mixed, but majority of the people are angry. Majority of the parents are angry. They are angry because there are complete lack of information. You know, no reach out on whatever from whatever angle. The parents have been living in the dark. Nobody has ever told them this is exactly what we are doing. These are the steps we've taken. And after this one, this is exactly what we are going to do. Because all that they have been getting is we are doing everything and we will get the girls back. And that is not enough. But on seeing the first video, they know, okay, these girls have been taken and this is where they are. And the second video came out. the proof of life, few people were able to identify their daughters on that video, and others were asking, where are our own daughters? Are they alive or they are dead? Now the third video, and the third video is traumatizing because it is now putting the Chibok parent, just like the first one, with the burden of, the first one was with the burden of proof. Now it is them that is with the burden of asking federal government what to do. That is not right, because majority of these people are on school. They are peasants, poor people. So is it a crime to be poor? Why are we treating poor people with such abhorrence? You know, and that has been their question. Why they are asking this is because nobody is telling them anything. And again, what others are asking is, where is my daughter? Could she be the one laying down there injured? Could she be among the ones that were reported to have been dead? Or is she among the ones standing there? Because not all the 50 girls on that video could easily be identified. So that is the big issue, and it's of concern to them. It's on record that about 19 of the parents are dead already, you know, because some of them are as a result of diseases associated with stress and trauma. And living in trauma for over 2 years and 4 months, you know, waiting for your daughter that you are not sure whether she is dead or she is alive is painful. And that is the mood in Chibok, palpable anger and nothing more than that. Lots of questions that cannot be answered, lots of questions that I cannot respond to it, and they have asked for judicial committee of inquiry where they will ask their question and get credible answers. But that has not been provided. Even when the government announced at the last visit of the Bring Back Our Girls that they are going to set another committee to intimate these people and get answers to, you know, numerous questions that have been asked, that has not come to be. And these are the confusions.
All right, Dr. Manasseh, just hold on. Let's come to our guest in the studio, Tanwa Ashiru. You heard, you know, how he's described the traumatic state that the parents of these Chibok girls are in, for those who are even alive. Many of them have actually lost their lives. But government is saying that it's actually in touch with some of these Boko Haram terrorists. But the real challenge here is, how do you deal with a splinter group, a group that's been, you know, split into smithereens, as it were? Because government is saying there are two groups, but you might even have, you know, find a situation where there are more than two Boko Haram groups. How does government deal with this kind of situation so that, you know, the lives of the girls are not further endangered? What are the options open to government? Okay, so right now, and I know this was a public split happened, which is where the child of Muhammad Yusuf, who was the founder of Boko Haram in essence, so his son used to be the media communicator or something of Boko Haram. So eventually he split. He said, you know what, Shekau, I can't do this anymore because you are killing too many Muslims, and that is not Islam. You're preaching a wrong version of Islam. And, you know, he released a statement saying that. And so if you look at the situation, at the end of from the statement, he painted a picture of an Abubakar Shekau who is, in essence, just, you know, in his empire, in his house in Sampisa. I remember reading the transcripts of what Albanari, the message he sent to Shekau, and he said, look, Shekau, this message will get to you. It will get to your house in Sampisa. I have people that will take it there. So in essence, what you're seeing is, you know, when he even sent it, Shekau released his own. Communication is flying back and forth. And you mean the military isn't intercepting this communication of figuring out who the couriers are, where it's coming from, where it's emanating from, and so on. So there's been a public, you know, faction that has gone on. So part of the reason why we think Shekau must have, you know, did this video, ordered them to do this video with the Chibok girls, was in essence to prove that, you know what, at the end of the day, I still have the prize, you know, with me. At the end of the day, you know what, I still have the power and control over the government. Why? Because they want this great prize that I have. Whereas the other guy said, you know what, we're out. Now, that doesn't make him any better, okay, because he said, oh, why are you attacking Muslims? Why don't you attack Christians and barracks, which is Christians and the police or the military? And so in essence, it has created a bit
more complexity to the whole situation, which is that are they now going to start fighting themselves, or are we now going to have two different groups that are fighting on two different fronts, which is, so he's going to focus on targeting, you know, the Christians and the barracks, and then Shekau is just going to continue on his killing rampage of just whoever, wherever. So it is a dicey situation, but from what your guests were saying, it's obvious that there are two main issues that the military and even the federal government is having right now. Number one is using intelligence that they have, getting as well intelligence and using it. What I mean by getting, she said that, you know, the Civilian Joint Task Force has a lot of information. They're trying to share it, and the Nigerian government is just not listening. And then number two, you have people like Amina, exactly, herself, who has provided information, and they're not utilizing it. So it's, you know, that's why I keep going back to resources. Is it that they've said, okay, look, this is the problem. The Nigerian government has the entire issue, you know, they know what's going on, but they're like, sir, we can't do anything. We don't have the resources. We don't have, you know, the aircraft. We don't have the technical capability. And if that's the case, just ask. You see other countries that are willing to help. But I think there's that tricky thing where the government doesn't want to relinquish, you know, exactly, to outsiders too much. And so it's a dicey situation. The second issue is on communication. I've always maintained that the communication of this government, if there's one Achilles heel that they have, is poor communication. They're just not being honest. They're not telling the truth. They're not saying things when it needs to be said. Why? All along, we have killings of Fulani herdsmen, you know, or not Fulani herdsmen, or herdsmen. Yes, you know, on a killing rampage across the country, yet you haven't heard any definitive, you know, response from the government. We've heard responses all along when it's the Niger Delta and, you know, militants and even cattle rustlers in the Northwest. But so communication is also an issue that really needs to be ironed out.
All right, let me bring in Dr. Manasseh in here. Now, before I let you go generally, can you give us, now, let us know precisely what do you want government to do that will make the Chibok parents or Chibok community feel happy towards effort in releasing these girls or finding the girls, as the case may be?
The fact is, it is beyond just something that will make the Chibok parents or the community happy. It is something that will bring back the image of this country, something that will bring Nigeria back to its foot, because we've been lied to times without number. Has the war been won, truly? Has the war been won? But it was announced that we've won the war, and Nigerians are quiet. Can we make use of our roads as it's supposed to be? Can someone travel even the road that has been opened from Damboa to Maiduguri freely without military escort? Is Sambisa not on our soil? Sambisa is located within the three triangles of Damboa, Goza, and Askira Uba. And if girls could be kept, 218 and 19 girls before Amina escaped could be kept, and many others on our soil within that small triangle that has been called forest, even though all of us know very well that there has not been forest in that place, and we are all quiet, we can't ask critical questions. All we've been getting are excuses. Excuses are a sign of failure. Yes, the military have sacrificed all, some have paid the supreme price in defense of this country, but the fact about the matter is this war is far from being over. As we all know, when did the Boko Haram announce that they have been splitted? Was it not of recent? What has been done over all these years that they have been together? Who are the people directly involved in the negotiation issue? These are the type of things that Nigerians need to know. We have to ask critical questions, and our government need not to just be reactionary. Whenever there is video, this news will be on the media platforms, and then few days after, it dies down. The proof of life video, how did it come to be? Where has it emanated from? Who asked CNN? How did they get that video? Was there any intelligence as to trace exactly how that video was released? No. And again, we've seen that people have been declared wanted. Has been the level of involvement of this same government, even before the government of the last President Goodluck Jonathan? What has been the level of involvement of this government with these people that have been declared wanted? These are the type of questions that we want Nigerians to ask and insist of getting these answers from our government, because governance has its demand and supply side. citizens and the media especially must ask and demand for the supply of that of good governance and accountability from our leaders. This is what we all need to do. And the Chibok community alone cannot do that, because we are still arguing with Nigerians, learned people for that matter, as to is the abduction even true? Up to this
okay,
day,
Dr. Alan Manasseh, Director of Media and Publicity of the Chibok community, thank you so much for your time. Of course, so many questions there. We do hope that the rightful authorities will provide the answers to all those questions that you've reeled out. But let me go to Yemi Damolekun. You are a member of the Bring Back Our Girls. 40 or so have been married, according to the terrorists, and military aircraft or weaponry has taken out some of the girls. I use that word, you know, with caution. What do you make of this coming from the Boko Haram terrorists themselves? And that's on the one hand. And on the other hand, they're asking, you know, government, as a matter of fact, using the word begging government to release their own men that are, you know, in the custody of government, so that they can release these girls. What do you make of all of this?
Two things. I think Tanwa sort of explained the issue of the airstrikes the way I would like to explain it. So I think anybody giving credit to what Boko Haram is saying around airstrikes killing the girls, I would discount that greatly. So using the phrase taking out the girls, I do take objection to that phraseology. I don't think we should give it any credence based on experts who have looked at the video and said it's not possible from an airstrike. So that's that. On the issue of negotiations, this has been in the game since they were abducted. I'm not a government official. I'm not privy to intelligence. As we keep saying, the government of Nigeria has the responsibility to rescue the Chibok girls, and they need to do that whichever way they're going to do it based on the information that is available to them. Thirdly, I just wanted to re-emphasize this issue of communication. The way the government has treated the Chibok girls, who, as Tanwa described, if it's Shekau's prized possession, and the way you've treated so-called the prized possession is an indicator of the way they continue to treat those who are in Boko Haram territory and those that they've rescued. It does not bode very well in terms of the value of Nigerian lives. And again, back to communication, the government of Nigeria needs to get connected back to the realities of its citizens. From the Chibok family to those in families of those who have been affected by herdsmen and the slaughter in different parts of the country, to issues happening in the Niger Delta. A spokesperson for the president, Mr. Adesina, cannot be saying that once people complain or once people are raising issues about hardship, that they are just wailing and complaining. No, this is the reality of Nigeria. This is the reality, and the Nigerian government needs to really wake up to their responsibilities.
Okay, thank you, Yemi. Let me bring in Tanwa in here. About 3 persons have been declared wanted. Ahmed Salkida, Ahmed Bolori, and Aisha Wakil. These are people who they say they have contact somehow with Boko Haram member or Boko Haram sect, as the case may be. Now, declaring them wanted at this time, how does it jeopardize the rescue process when it is supposed to be a security intelligence issue where, okay, you know these people, look for a way of, since you already know that they have contact with these people, look for a way of getting to them without declaring them, because when you declare them wanted, one feels that, okay, they're going to, it's like a war against them or something. How does this jeopardize the process?
No, to be honest, I saw it as almost like a lack of respect, because when CNN released that video, you know, the last one we saw, nobody declared any of the CNN journalists wanted. Obviously, they had some kind of communication with, you know, whoever sent the video to them. And so doing that to Nigerian journalists, I mean, just shows the level of respect, so to speak, that's being given to them. I don't think that was the right way of going about it. Even if you wanted them, you didn't need to, one, announce they were wanted. In fact, the lady who was one of the ones that they said was wanted, she actually said, I don't know why you guys are saying this. You have access to me, just a simple phone call, and I would have showed up at your barracks. The other guy showed up, and they told him, oh, well, go back. Why? Because it hadn't actually been communicated across, you know, the military. So the guys that saw him were like, well, I don't know why you're here. Go. And he had to leave. And then he came back again. And then the third guy said, look, you guys know where I am. I've worked with you on so many occasions. That was Sakil. Yeah, he said, you've worked with me on so many occasions. You know who I am. You know where I am. You know if I have information, I will share it with you. So the honest truth is, yes, the military probably needs information from them. You want to know where you're getting it from, what's going on, and that's fine. Use back channels. Be diplomatic about it, because at the end of the day, they can help. You know, don't come out to say they're wanted. But I think the language was different from their intentions. So the military, even though the language put out there was, oh, you're wanted, really their intentions were, can you guys come in? We need to speak with you. So remember, it goes back to that communication.
Yes.
You know, you need to find a way to speak, and you know, and that's a major issue right now.
Tanwa Ashiru, U.S. Air Force veteran and security analyst. It's been so nice having you.
Thank you.
You don't look anything like a veteran, because when you say veteran, you know, you want to see gray hairs and all of that. But thank you, and muscles. But thank you so much. It's been a delight having you. Yes, indeed. We hope to have you again.
Thanks,
hopefully, there'll be better news at that time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope so.
All right, let's bring him back. We're still with Yemi Adamolekun, the member of the BBOG group, with us on Skype. Now, moving forward, with the issue of I'll take it from the last point from Tanwa in here. When it comes to information management, what from the BBOG group, in what's the best form of government communicating with its citizens and even the Chibok community, and then agencies like yours that have been keeping the dream alive?
Unless I'm mistaken, there is no point of contact with the federal government on this issue. Now, after the January meeting with the president and what followed up from that, the president did say he was going to set up a committee to look into the abduction and the circumstances around it. Till to date, this is August, the committee has not been constituted. I mean, that's ridiculous. You have an issue of this gravity. The Jonathan administration had a committee. They issued their report. We've asked for the report to be made public. It has yet to be made public. This is 2 years, 4 months later. In January, this administration decided they were going to have their own committee. It's in August. They have yet to appoint members of the committee. Well, this government is yet to appoint members for a lot of things, INEC included. But anyway, they are yet to assign members for this committee. So the level of urgency that they claim they're giving, or priority that they claim they're giving to this issue, does not match their words. It's really very simple.
So where do we go from here? That's the question. When you say that the level of, whatever government is saying really does not match their action, what do you want to see going forward? And the bring back our girls, what exactly, I'm just trying to figure out, the way forward for your group. Especially, yes, and I want to also know, how is your engagement with the parents of these girls, especially with the release of this latest video?
Well, personally, I'm in Lagos, so personally, I haven't had any engagement with the parents. I mean, Dr. Allen, that you had on the line, will be in a better position to discuss that. But really, moving forward, the issues are very simple. One, set up this committee to do this investigation. Again, the civilian JTF have consistently said that they have information that nobody has gotten from them. You have 57 girls who escaped on their own. As far as we can tell, none of them were debriefed by the Jonathan administration nor by the Buhari administration. Number 3, release the report of the Jonathan administration on this issue, unless there's some national security issue in it. If there is, edit that part out and release the rest of the report. Number 4, create a hub of information. People from the Army, people from the NSA's office, people from Women's Affairs, whichever body has a stake in this and has information to share, create a hub that's a one-stop shop. So Mr. Garba Shehu is not releasing a statement, then Mr. Mohammed says something else, then the Army says something else, then somebody else says something else. Ministry of Women Affairs, where the Chibok desk was supposed to be situated, completely not functional, nothing happening there. So really, I mean, if those really those are 4 things I've counted. If those things are even put in place, then this government will show that they're serious. Then have a meeting with the relevant stakeholders and sort of give an update. This is where we are. These are the challenges that we have. This is where we're going. This is where we might need your help. This is what we're trying to do. It's really not that difficult when a government wants to engage its citizens. But when it doesn't, then your citizens become an enemy, and then you're on the defensive 24/7.
All right, Yemi Adamolekun, thank you very much for joining us on TVC Breakfast this morning.
Thank you very much.